Does the composite, at least that was described in this piece, resemble the administration that you once worked for?
Oh, no. There were real guardrails. There was a real chief of staff. Susie Wiles, I think in these interviews struggled to try to establish some dignity for herself, some distance from the narcissistic, vengeful exercise that, Trump has undertaken and the people who support that, and Elon Musk's, chaotic destruction of USAID. I mean, that distance is important because USAID's dissimulation, coupled with the craziness from RFK Jr. at HHS, is estimated to going to kill 14 million people, which even Hitler couldn't achieve that. So I think some of these interviews of people who are there, if they're being truthful, and she was at least partially truthful until the day when she tried to suggest some of these things weren't said and some of them were out of context. I mean, there are tapes of these interviews. It's pretty clear she said all this stuff. They have to downplay it because, frankly, what she said is true in many respects and worse than what she said in others.
Wow. All right. Well, you just said a lot there, Ty. Where to pick up on Susie Wiles? This is interesting. You referred to having a real chief of staff then. She's widely regarded as being a loyal soldier, someone who does not speak out of school. We remember the night that President Trump won the second term, she wouldn't even walk up to the microphone when he invited her. But incredible honesty, if we take Vanity Fair at its word, and to your point, these conversations were recorded, to say openly that the president was simply wrong about Bill Clinton and the Epstein files. What do you make of this casual honesty in such a forum by the chief of staff?
So I think that comment, coupled with her suggestion that he has an alcoholic personality. I'm not really sure what an alcoholic personality is. He definitely suffers from acute narcissistic personality disorder, and there's suggestions recently by psychiatrists and others knowledgeable in the area that he's exhibiting serious signs of dementia and other physical deterioration. So clearly, what he does is bizarre. Clearly, the media struggles with how far to go with that. They often sane-wash some of the things he does, but she actually was almost candid about how weird things are in the administration, between Vance's conspiracy theories, Musk's ketamine addiction. I mean, she sort of aired some of these things out in a way that people need to understand that it's real. It's craziness what's going on.
Does this read like an exit interview to you, Ty, or she's going to be in the White House for many more months having done these interviews?
Trump doesn't fire loyalists. I mean, Pete Hegseth every day establishes a new level of incompetence that wouldn't have been tolerated, for 24 hours by any other president. And Pam Bondi as well. Even, of course, Susie Wiles was very candid about Pam Bondi. I don't think anybody in the administration has said a good word about Pam Bondi in months. So I think, but Susie is very, very loyal to the president. She does a good job of what he needs, which is, to try to keep the trains running. They don't run on time, but they're running to some degree. It is an odd White House now. People walk in and out of the Oval Office, in sort of an undisciplined manner, and you see these just bizarre comments coming from the president that nobody intercepts or prevents. I mean, most recently, of course, the despicable, shocking, and unprecedented dancing on Rob Reiner's grave and that of his wife. Wow. By the president merely because that the Reiners opposed his policies and the racism and other issues at the White House. So I mean, it's just those are the kind of comments no president in history would have ever made. No man, woman in history should have ever made those comments. But they come out, and they come out weekly, if not daily. And that
administration was back in court today.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, Ty. I only have about a minute left. I just have to ask you about this case involving the ballroom. The president fired his handpicked architect, as you know, and the ballroom is underway with, I guess, a more enhanced design. Having been sued, there's a legal challenge by the National Trust for Historic Preservation. They want this to freeze in place before more can be done. The White House is invoking national security, that it must be built on the grounds of national security. Considering the fact that this is on the White House grounds, Ty, in our remaining moment, is there some truth to that?
No, there's zero truth to that. Now, there is a bunker there that, has some national security issues, but they don't have to build the ballroom to protect the bunker. But Trump always invokes national security. In fact, your last guest, Ms. Grant, talked about the OLC memo that, Trump has said that people are, that they're worthy war targets when legally they aren't, and it's largely made up. So national security invocation is sort of the last resort of trying to say I can break the rules because of national security. I think the court's going to impose some rules.